So that led us to think that in order to reduce this shadowing effect, you know, in large companies it's much easier to have the shadowing effect. You hide behind other people and it's difficult to justify what your exact role is, right? But in small companies it's difficult, right? Okay, in order to reduce this shadowing effect, so what we have done is, as I said, you know, for a discussion forum, we deliberately multiplied it into 3 or 4. We control for each one maybe 4 or 5 students, and we pick the students who are of similar background, so that it's not so much of a divide and embarrassment between some with a lot of experience. Some of those have very young or no experience. All right, so we filter them and allocate them into specific groups. And the effect is amazing. So another rule we set, obviously, is okay, for group 1, maybe this group of students have 5 years to 10 years experience, all right? And for group 2, maybe this group has over 10 years experience. For group 3, maybe 0 to 2 years experience. And we only allow them to, they can read all the postings in all the groups, but they can only reply and edit and contribute in the group that they're being allocated to write, all right? And over the semester, we run that for a number of semesters. We have very good results. Obviously, more needs to be done in order to substantiate it. And we compare with the Wikipedia benchmark. I mean, obviously, the Wikipedia one is heavily skewed, right? You don't know that, you know, at least for Wikipedia, some 80% of the contribution is being made by something like, what, 3 to 5% of the people, right? And in our case, if we split it on a very small scale, if we split it into 4 or 5 wikis of only 4 or 5 people, the shadowing effect is greatly diminished. And we can have something like, based on the same measurement mouse yardsticks, 60% of people being active in the wikis, all right? And that is wonderful, right? Rather than I bang all the 30 into one wiki, and then I have only 3 or 4 who are really active, and the rest are just there to get marks, right? So this is something we have done. Obviously, more experiments needs to be conducted. So do bear in mind that a wiki is not a panacea to everything. There is a limit to the effectiveness of the wiki in terms of the size and the various things that you can govern around. You know, the expertise of the people, seniority of the people, shadowing effect, line of authority, groupthink, among many things. You should for those of you who stay tuned to Ross Dawson's work, Advanced Human Technology, AHT.com. I'm quite amazed by his leadership thinking. And Ross Dawson led us to think that, look, in today's highly competitive society, in fast-paced, knowledge-based evolution, we should not just contain worth having good skill set in ourselves, but also be able to extend our collaboration boundaries, be able to extend and expand our network so that we can broker good relationships with people that can help each other and hopefully can also help us in our career. And the cloud computing, in other words, and also crowdsourcing, among other types of open innovation ideas, presents a lots of good opportunities for us to do that. So just so you know, based on the way that I have just explained to you, over the years, especially in the last 12 years, until about 2 years ago, the PKM evolution was from skills and processes to values, competencies, and then sense making. And then in the last 2 years, and possibly pushing on into the next 3 or 5 years as well, a lot will be PKM in the cloud. Okay, so it's a large part of it depends on how we make sense of what are the tools and how to reposition the cloud to help us in order to get the most out of communications, collaborations, classifications, and network building skill set. Now that takes us to this term called PLE, Personal Learning Environment. Now that's not a term that I exclusively use, right? Because you can do a search on Google and you'll find that there are many manifestations of PLE, right? Because PLE is such a generic term, it just stands for a customized personal learning environment. Well, that learning environment can be done by, I suppose, Yahoo, other types of web portals, certain Google tools, or a combination of those. So it's not bound to be one particular, instantiation. And then I work with Ricky Chong, once again, my doctoral student, and we think hard to see how we can actually extend PKM to a PKM 2.0 model, in particular drawing on the interactiveness that we learned from Web 2.0. And we came up with this model, which is not just doing the PKM ourselves, not just worrying about our own environment, but also focus on how we can effectively transfer and broken knowledge between various individuals as well as in the network. And I'll try to illustrate more of this to you when we talk about the personal learning environment. Once again, this is also in one of the papers that I published with Ricky Chong. Before we leave this topic about PKM, even if you are not IT savvy, I think you would appreciate that there are different ways that PKM tools present themselves. Some of those are standalone tools, some of those are always web hosts or cloud hosts, some of those are, connecting people with information. Most of those are connecting people with information, but these days, increasingly with social networking tools in particular, they are more like connecting people with people, which I believe is a lot more value, all right? And of course, most of the PKM tools, I believe, either they have a free version in addition to an enterprise version. Many of them are free, but there are also some that are, that address a license fee as well. Okay, so allow me to go into the second part of this talk, which talked about, effective leverage of various cloud-based tools to erect a personal learning environment. And I have also conducted feedback and analysis about how people actually appreciate and leverage on such an environment. So here we go. PLE. Firstly, I only operate with the concept, like most people, PLE, right, rather than PLEN. Before the talk, this gentleman came forward and said, "What's a PLEN? What's the end?" Right? So initially, when we start thinking, we only focus on PLE. But I thought that, I'll be shooting my own feet because we should not be just thinking about ourselves. We should not be just isolating ourselves as individual knowledge workers. But we should also, once again, be able to sense our environment, establish our network, collaborate with other people, discover some new connections that we should be brokering with. So therefore, I extend the PLE to PLENN, right? Personal learning environment and network. And I'm a true believer of the fact that when setting up this PLEN, we should try to deploy and foster a co-learning environment. In other words, not just learning from the instructors. This is, I don't like this kind of presentation too much. Although this is a smaller audience and it's maximum 1 hour, that's fine. But increasingly, we should be also operating as small group discussions, whereby we can bring in different types of people so that we can learn from these people and we can learn from each other as well. So a co-learning aspect is very important. Why did I have all this? Because I have too many lectures in university, right? Too many lectures in university, and in university, although this is increasingly not the norm, but we still have many lectures like this, and sometimes you see some students are sleeping, some people are talking, so not all of them are paying attention at the lectures. And on the other hand, I discovered that students, increasingly spend their time in small scale or much smaller scale study groups, right? Which from time to time you may or may not involve the lecturer, right? And they can also bring in other people, like graduates or other people that they trust, who can give them some guiding principles as well. So why can't university also steer our ship so that we can support this kind of learning environment? Why don't we, why should we always stay with this one-to-many approach, and especially after the semester is over, we shut down the learning management systems and deregister them for all the subjects that they enrolled in the last semester and so forth. So I find that that's not the right thing to do. And then when I stand up and give lectures, I don't think I'm giving away any trade secrets here. We have time to prepare lectures, but we also lag behind in terms of fully updating all the lectures all the time, right? And a 3 hours lecture in most universities, a subject is involving weeks and weeks of 3 hours lecture. 3 hours lecture, it's a long time. You have a break, but still doesn't allow you to communicate or teach. Teach is not the right word, really, right? To communicate everything that you want to. Sometimes you may forget about some things that you want to talk about. But for those of you who have attended university, or even better, have taught at university before, the university calendar is very rigid. Right? We have a 14-week semester, it's all planned. Week 1, you're going to talk about this. Week 2, you're going to talk about this, and blah, blah, blah. Week 14, you're going to talk about this. So by week 2, you may have, may run out of time, you may not have a case study to talk about, but in week 3, whether you have the case study or not, whether you remember or not, you wouldn't have time to go back because you have to stick with the schedule, right? So that doesn't allow us to continue with a good and rich education as well. Alright, so the guiding principle for us to establish this personal learning environment is, I think it works equally applicable to all of us here as knowledge workers, whether you're a learner, you're a working professional or not. We are surrounded by tons of information, whether you like it or not. They come into our mailbox, they come into our electronic mail, they come in as SMS or whatever. We are bombarded by a lot of information. All right, some of those you can read, some of those you ignore, some of those maybe you delete immediately, some of those you just pass it on to some other people. But equally, we also have theoretically a good set of trusted friends, and these people can also refer things to us. And being trusted friends or colleagues, generally speaking, subconsciously, you will place a higher trust on the sort of information that these people pass to you. Because why? Because they recommend to you, supposedly they have read it, and it's more relevant to what you and these people are working on. Otherwise, it should not be sent to you. So over time, irrespective of your role or your seniority or whatever, or where you are, you have been actually subconsciously running your own personal environment, right? Whether this environment is discrete, is uncoordinated, or not functioning properly, doesn't matter. Okay, that's not the point. Extend that to another person, same thing. All right. In here, I have a teacher and a student, but we can substitute other roles as well. And if we extend it to the society, because everyone is an entity in the society. So you see, today is a Cogneon Academy day, right? So we come here and we have this community, we have a meeting. Everyone is a Cogneon member, right? And you all go back to your workplace next Monday. You're back to your organization's workplace. You may have a different identity. So depending on which group, which community you belong to, you may play different roles, right? Your role may be being seen as a subject matter champion. Your role may be seen as a project leader. Your role may be seen just as an ordinary member. Your role may be seen as an influencer. And sometimes your role could be just a backseat rider. You don't expect to say it. You just expect there to learn more first. All right, so this can get quite complicated. But it doesn't really matter. We are also surrounded by a lot of tools, especially these easy to install Web 2.0 tools as well. So it kind of led me to think that, look, is it possible that in this case, at least in the academic environment, I managed to bring together 4 groups of people, teachers and students, that's pretty obvious, right? But I thought that, hey, graduates also have a great role to contribute. In fact, it would be far more effective for a graduate of 2 or 3 years, because they're still in the same generation as a student, to come back and talk to them, virtually or physically, right? Better than me asking them to work hard, because they always think that I'll ask them to work hard, right? And then we can also have guest speakers, like industry professionals and so forth, coming into the learning environment as well. Being virtual, I don't have to ask for the university's approval. Being virtual, I don't have to set additional lecture to do that, right? So that together allows me to do something like, borrow a piece of paper? Allows me to do something like, for example, if this student wants to use Symbaloo, Twitter, not Symbaloo, whatever this one is, as part of his or her learning environment, and some other person likes to use Twitter and Wiki as well. Yet another person is, he's very email and Gmail centric, and he also would like to use LinkedIn. So that's fine. We can have a cooperative environment where each person, assuming that we install the base set of tools for the PLE, they can plug in and install other things, so to constitute their own personalized learning environment.